Hi, I'm Mackenzie Maxwell, and today I'll be showing a presentation on improving shipment time. I am a mechanical engineering technology major, and I'm expected to graduate in May 2023. For the introduction, this is basically a summary on the on-time and late shipments for a company in 2010. I was able to analyze the data that was given to me, and I was able to pinpoint each month and pick the prominent months of failure to be able to follow the company in their shipment times. A little background is that the average on-time rate for the company was approximately 50.3%, which is about half. A total of 1,222 deliveries were made, and only 611 of the shipments were on time. From that information, I was able to make a trend chart. So by looking at the trend chart, you can see that in May they had the highest average of on-time percentage of 55.6%, and then in June they had the lowest percentage at 40.2%. Throughout the year, you can analyze this graph and see that it was at a pretty constant, a trend for the year. I mean, it really fluctuated, but at the end of the year, they ended up on a positive slope. So by looking at that data, I was able to look at the worst on-time percentages of the year, which turned out to be June. So I made a pie chart of June and to look at the reasons why it was late. And so by looking at this, I was able to see that June had a 59.83% of late shipments, or 70 units. Which is not good. And then from this point, you can then look at the plan of action, which is to look at the Pareto chart. And the Pareto chart basically just states that it shows all of the reasons why the shipments were late. And by looking at this chart, we can see that the capacity and missing parts made up for 51.4% of the late shipments that month. So because of that, we can then look into missing parts and capacity to really dive in to see how we can fix those to improve the shipment times. So when we look at our methodology, we can look at this cause and effect analysis diagram, and you can see that, like, you start over here, why were there late shipment deliveries, and then you can break down each point, and that way, you can improve the shipment times overall. So when you look into the methodology, we can see that we need to improve the missing parts. So you can start at the very top, which is less missing parts, and break your way down. So you want to conduct inspections during manufacturing, so that way you're catching the little mess ups or the breaking parts that are going on. And then you can break that down into human error. During the machining process, during the counting process, you're always going to have human error, which when you have less technology, there's going to be a higher human error rate. And then before manufacturing, you can all make sure that all the parts are accounted for before you start manufacturing, so that way at the end everything's there. And then you come over here. One of the reasons that you could have a lot of missing parts is because you don't have an effective scanning system. So you can make sure that you have an effective scanning system when you're done, so that way it's like you're making sure all your parts are there. So, and then to improve capacity, it really just starts with you can start with reducing machine time, and that goes to show, like, when your machine breaks down, have a system that alerts you, hey, this machine's broken, so that way you can go fix that machine to get it back up and running. Or it also goes down to right here, have more working hours. Get more people to work around the clock, so that way, your production line is keeping going, so it's always making parts. And then it also goes into tie into more production hours for that machine, so that way you can reach capacity and, have a bigger capacity. So it really comes down to analyzing the customer demand. When looking at capacity, it really is important to look at that demand, because that demand's always changing. It's almost kind of unpredictable at some points. However, a lot of this changed with the season. So if you create a trend chart for the year 2010 and say, okay, this is the customer demand of this year, in future years, you can compare to that trend chart, and eventually you'll know, hey, like in June, I need more shipments, more parts than I do in December. So that way it's like you always know, you can kind of predict that demand. And then it also comes down to evaluating the effectiveness. So you can look into your employees and see, okay, this person, you know, is slacking off, they're not really being effective towards making these parts. So you could cut them off, you know, hire someone that's more productive. Or you can also look into your machinery effectiveness, because if that machine isn't being as effective as you need it to, then that's just, you know, reducing your production when you could get a more effective machine and have a higher capacity. In conclusion, I hope that the company will be able to look at the data that was presented to really help them in the future. By using the cause and effect system, they'll be able to follow up with any other issues that might occur within the year, and they'll be able to create a solution by using root analysis. If they're able to follow the steps, they'll be able to solve many issues that may occur. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.